You ran into someone last week, a guy you used to work with. He left the company about 10 years ago for a better job somewhere else, and you remember him as the guy who finally made it. Bigger house, nicer car, vacations the rest of you couldn't afford. He was the proof that the next rung on the ladder was worth climbing for. You hadn't seen him in years. He looked older than he should, tired around the eyes. You asked what he was up to, and he gave you a smile that didn't quite land and said he was back in the game. Took a contract role at 62 because the consulting work dried up. Said his wife went back to work part-time. Said it casually, like it was fine. You drove home wondering what happened. Because on paper, this guy made it. Six-figure income for 20 years. Good company, smart guy. He should be on a boat right now, not commuting to a contract job he doesn't want. Here's what happened. Between 42 and 52, he made 6 purchases that felt completely normal at the time. Each one made sense on its own. Each one was something he had earned. And together, they quietly cost him the retirement he thought was guaranteed. These are the 6. And if you're in your 40s right now, at least 2 of them are already on your calendar. I'm Professor Wealth. Let's run the numbers. This is Greg. Greg is 47, makes $165,000 a year, lives in Charlotte, married with 2 kids. Greg and his wife just bought a bigger house. Their old house was worth $380,000 with about $180,000 left on the mortgage. The new house cost $720,000. They put $200,000 down from the sale of the old place, financed $520,000 at a 6.8% rate, and locked in a 30-year mortgage that won't be paid off until Greg is 77. On the surface, this looks fine. They can afford the payment, they got approved, the bank said yes. But the bank isn't the one retiring. Greg is. Here's what actually happened to Greg's money. His mortgage payment went from about $1,400 a month to roughly $3,400. Property taxes roughly doubled. Homeowners insurance went up. Utilities on the bigger house went up. When you add it all together, Greg is now spending about $2,400 more every single month to live in his new house than his old one. If Greg had stayed in the old house and invested that $2,400 a month in a basic S&P 500 index fund, earning a historical 7% real return by the time he hits 65, that money grows to roughly $1.05 million. That is the real cost of the upgrade. Over $1 million in retirement money gone, because Greg wanted more square footage at 47. The kicker, the kids leave in 5 to 7 years. The house Greg bought to fit a family of 4 will, for most of its life, hold 2 empty adults and a guest room nobody uses. This is David. David is 44. David doesn't drive a luxury car exactly. David drives a perfectly nice mid-tier SUV. He bought it new 3 years ago. The payment is $720 a month, and he has 3 years left on the loan. And David is about to do something men in their 40s do constantly. He's about to trade it in early. The new model came out. The lease deal at the dealership is too good to pass up. The salesman ran the numbers and said, David can roll his existing loan balance into the new lease, and the payment only goes up by $90 a month. David thinks he's getting a deal. David is not getting a deal. David is signing up for permanent car payments. The average new car payment in the United States right now is over $740 a month. The average loan term is over 68 months. People in their 40s have normalized having a car payment as a fixed part of life forever. It's not a temporary expense between cars, it's a permanent line item. Here's the math. If David runs a $740 car payment continuously from age 44 to age 65, that's 21 years of payments. That's roughly $186,000 in raw payments. If instead David drove a paid-off used car and invested that $740 a month at a 7% real return, he would have approximately $395,000 in his retirement account at 65. That's not the cost of one car. That's the cost of the cycle. The trade-in every 3 years. The upgrade, the roll the loan into the new one trick. Almost $400,000 in retirement money gone because David never let himself experience the freedom of not having a car payment. This is Robert. Robert is 51. Robert and his wife just bought a lake house, 3 hours from home. $425,000. They love it. The kids love it. The grandkids will love it. It's the family gathering place for the next 30 years. That's the dream Robert bought. Here's the reality. Robert and his wife use the lake house about 28 days a year. Long weekends in the summer, a week in July, a few off-season trips, 28 days out of 365. That means the house sits empty roughly 92% of the time, and it costs money every single one of those days. Mortgage payment on the lake house, $2,650 a month. Property taxes, about $450 a month. Insurance, including the flood policy because it's near water, about $280 a month. Utilities and basic maintenance, whether they're there or not, about $220 a month. Furniture replacement, lawn service, the dock repair every few years, the boat that came with it. Another $350 a month averaged out. Total carrying cost, roughly $3,950 a month, about $47,000 a year. To use the place 28 days. That works out to roughly $1,680 per night of actual use. Robert could stay at a 5-star resort on that lake every weekend and come out ahead. But here's the trap. Robert won't sell it. He can't. The grandkids are coming. His wife loves it. They've put a flagstone patio in. There are family photos on the wall. The lake house has become an identity, not an asset. And it will keep draining $47,000 a year until either Robert sells it at a loss in his 70s or his kids do after he's gone. Run that $47,000 a year as a portfolio contribution from 51 to 65 instead, at a 7% real return, and Robert would have an additional $1.08 million in retirement. The lake house didn't just cost what it cost what it could have been. This is Ken. Ken is 49. Ken bought a boat, not a small one, a 32-foot cabin cruiser. $145,000 financed over 15 years at 9.2% because boat loans are not car loans. Ken's payment is around $1,490 a month. Ken uses the boat about 8 times a year. He tells himself it's 12. It's 8, and the payment is only the start. Slip fees at the marina, roughly $4,800 a year. Winter storage and shrink wrap, about $2,200. Insurance on the boat, roughly $1,800. Fuel for those 8 outings, about $1,200. Annual maintenance, oil changes, bottom paint, the things that always come up, about $3,500. Boats need replacement parts the way cars need oil, constantly. Total annual cost of Ken's boat, payment plus everything, roughly $31,300. To use it 8 times, that's almost $3,900 per outing. Ken could charter a captained luxury yacht for the day on each of those 8 trips and have money left over. Boats and RVs share a brutal feature that houses and cars don't have to the same degree. They depreciate while they sit. A $145,000 boat loses roughly 30 to 40% of its value in the first 3 years, even if Ken barely uses it. By the time Ken decides he's done with it at 55 or 56, he'll be lucky to get $65,000 for it. Meanwhile, he'll have paid roughly $188,000 over those years to own it. If Ken had skipped the boat and invested that $1,490 monthly payment plus the $13,500 a year in carrying costs at a 7% real return from 49 to 65, he'd have approximately $685,000 more at retirement. The boat is sold for $65,000. The math is not close. There's a saying about boats: the 2 best days of boat ownership are the day you buy it and the day you sell it. Almost every man in his 40s buying his first real boat is about to discover that saying applies to him too. This is Diana and her husband. They're in their early 50s. Their daughter just graduated college with $38,000 in student loans. They're paying them off. Their son is 26 and lives in an expensive city, so they cover his car insurance and his phone plan, and occasionally his rent when things get tight. The wedding is coming up next year. Diana's husband already promised they'd cover it. The number that keeps getting mentioned is $65,000. None of this is unreasonable. They love their kids. They have the income. They want to help. This is exactly how this trap works. Nobody helps their adult kids because they're stupid. They do it because they love them, and because each individual decision feels small and short-term. Here's the math nobody runs at the time. Across the student loan payoff, the ongoing monthly support, and the wedding, Diana and her husband are spending roughly $2,800 a month on their adult children. They've been doing it for about 3 years and have at least 4 more to go.